Hey everyone, welcome back to part 7 of the full stack trading app tutorial. In this video, we're going to add a few things to our trading app. Number 1, we're going to add a charting widget so that we can visualize the price data that's in our database. The second thing we'll do is add some filters so that we can take this giant list of 9,000 stocks and filter it down to just a handful that are of interest to us for trading for the next day, for instance. And then a third, we're going to add a couple of tables for strategies and stock strategies. That way we can mark these stocks that we filter down to. We can mark some of them to say, apply a particular strategy to this stock for the following day, for instance. So this is all going to set us up for part 8, where we're actually going to write a script to programmatically send some trades. And it's only going to programmatically send those trades for stocks that we have marked in the trading app on the web. So the trading strategy we're going to code first is based on a tweet I just got. So someone had a suggestion. So Market Rocks, this person sent a tweet saying, if possible in your current full stack trading app, try to add intraday data and something like, and he links to this Warrior Trading link here. And says, this is this opening range breakout article. And so, I took a look at this. And so basically the way this strategy works is it assigns a special statistical significance to the opening range of the day. So if I scroll down here, and this is a chart of Apple stock, it looks like a 15-minute chart. What it does is calculates the range of this opening bar. So this is a 15-minute chart here. And so this is the first 15-minute bar. So the market opens, 15 minutes passes. What is the low of that bar and what's the high of that bar? And so these black lines here, it gets that range. Let's say that's a $2 range there. And so if this next candlestick, for instance, breaks out above the high of the opening range, then you would place the trade right there. And so if that opening range is $2, then you'd place your trade there, and then you take profit at $2 above that, or you take a stop loss at $2 below. So it's very, very simple strategy, but the idea is that once it breaks out of the opening range, it's likely to continue, at least for the amount equal to that range. So we'll see if we can capture some profit that way. And actually looked at this over the past week to see how it performed, and it looks like you would have got some pretty good trades out of this. And so in order to actually implement this strategy, one of the important parts is that you select and have a directional bias. So we don't want to just run this strategy on every single stock in our database. We want to pre-select some stocks that we have a bullish or bearish bias on. So either we'll find some stocks to apply the strategy to that we think are in a bullish daily setup, and then we'll apply this strategy intraday. And then we could also find some bearish setups and have an opening range breakdown strategy. So if it breaks below this range, then we could short the stock. So that's the trading strategy we're going to cover first. And to set that up, we need to actually build these filters for our stock app here so that we can filter this list down to stocks that are of interest to us. So we'll find some stocks that we have a bullish and bearish bias on. Before we start coding, as usual, I want to thank the people that bought me a drink on the Buy Me a Coffee page that is linked below. So since last time, we have Michael Byrne. He says there's a lot of great examples that I'm providing, so I appreciate that. And he also says he'd like to see even more intraday stuff. So yes, we will cover more intraday trading. First of all, with this opening range breakout will be one example of intraday trading. And then the second thing, I think after this full stack trading app series concludes, I'll want to talk about this concurrent scalping algo here that's in the Alpaca repo. And there's a short README on it, but also I thought it'd be handy to break it down and demonstrate it in a live market environment. And so the way this works, this uses async IO and WebSockets and creates an instance of this scalping algorithm class that calculates a buy signal for multiple stocks concurrently. And the idea of a scalping algorithm is that you just capture a really small gain. So you're trying to get a lot of quick, easy wins and manage your losses. So never take a big loss. And it's just trying to get, very, very small trades and get quick wins. And so, this strategy is all about when we first detect a stock changing trends. So I think it buys after a 20-minute moving average crossover here, and it just tries to capture small wins. So I'll break this down and talk about this as another intraday example after this series. And then also, thanks to the other people who donated, including another anonymous donor. Caitlin bought 3 drinks. I appreciate that. And thank you to Mason and Josh Burt and Dinesh and MJ Rossman. So thanks a lot, everyone, for donating to the channel. I really appreciate it. And for anyone else, there is a link down below. And let's go ahead and get started with coding this part 7 of this app. So we have this stock list here. And so I'm going to click on one of the stocks. We have this Fast API application. And it's kind of dry, right? We just have a table of pricing data, historical prices, but we don't have a way to visualize that really easy, right? You usually want to see a chart. And so the easiest way to get started with a chart here, in some of the other videos, I've coded a chart in JavaScript from scratch. And we've also used matplotlib in Python to code charts as well. In this video, I thought it'd be quick if we use the embeddable TradingView widget that we also used in the Twitter cash tag extension video, the Chrome extension video. And so I thought we'd use that. And so I have a link to it, and I'll post this article after I finish writing it. But here is the link. It's tradingview.com, and you look for TradingView widget, and it's the advanced chart widget. And it looks just like this. So you get zooming, and you can change time frames, chart types, and so forth. And so they make it really easy to embed this JavaScript here. So we're going to copy this, and we can also give it a height and a width and a default interval. And so one thing I'm going to do here before I copy this is change the time zone. And so I'm going to use the New York time zone here. So I'll do that, and then I'll copy this code right here. So this is the code that we can embed. And then I'm going to go to our application, right? And so we have our app, and then we have the stock detail page. And so all we have to do is above prices. So here, Agilent Technologies, above prices, let's go ahead and put our chart up here. Okay, so, and then let's try American Airlines. Let's do that one. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'll paste this above prices, save it, reload the page, and voila, we have a chart that's embedded in our page, and it's for Apple stock, right? But we don't want Apple stock. We want to use the stock that's actually currently selected, right? And so what we want to do is look at the parameters here for the TradingView widget. And you'll notice it's not the full width here. It's hard-coded to 980 pixels. So what I can do here is in quotes do 100%, like that. If I do that, now it's the full width, so that looks better. Okay, and then you see it takes a parameter for symbol in the JavaScript. So it needs the exchange and the symbol. So it's getting Apple here, but we want to dynamically pass it AAL in this case, right? And so how do we do that? Well, it requires the exchange, which we don't yet have in our database. So let's go ahead and add the exchange. If you'll remember, Alpaca actually returns this data from the API. And so let's go ahead and populate that. So to do that, let's go back to our create DB script right here. This creates the tables for the stocks, and you'll see we don't have an exchange column. And so we're going to keep modifying our database as our application requirements change over time. And so I'm going to add exchange, and that's going to be a text column that is not null. So every single stock needs to have an exchange now. Okay. And so I'm going to add that. And then let's go ahead and just drop our database and recreate it. So I'm going to run drop DB. Okay. And then I'm also going to run create DB, right? And that'll create the new database structure. Okay. And so now we have a brand new database. And so if I were to type SQLite 3 and go to my app DB and I type schema, .schema and stock, you'll see we now have an exchange column. Okay, and so now we have this populate stock script that we've already built. Opens the database file, and all it does is populate stocks. And so since the Alpaca API already gets a list of tradable assets and already has an exchange column, all I have to do is add the exchange column to the list of columns we're inserting into, and we're inserting one extra value, and then we're passing in the asset.exchange, and then we just run our populate stock script just like this, and we'll run it, and it should go through and populate all of the stocks with their exchanges. So I ran that, it should be done. And now if I go back and refresh the page, the web server is not running, and I'll look at my history. Okay, and then we're running Uvicorn, our web server, main app reload, just like that. And we should be able to reload our page. And we should expect that we have the exchange information in our database now. And so if I go to my stock detail, we're already passing the stock to our template. And so now all we have to do is, in place of Apple, I'm going to put these curly braces, and I'm going to put stock.symbol. And then in place of NASDAQ here, I'm going to put stock.exchange. And what we hope is this swaps out with American Airlines. And there you go. We have American Airlines. If I click on any other stock in here, let's say Abbott Labs, click that, and there's our chart of Abbott Labs. So looking good. We have this chart already, and we have the ability to dynamically load a chart based on whatever stock symbol we add, right? Okay. And then the next thing we need to do, since I dropped the database and I want to refresh this data with the latest prices, I'm also going to run my populate prices again. And today is October 29th. And so I want to go ahead and get a snapshot of the latest price data. You may have already set this up in cron to automatically populate this so that it will automatically run. But since I just deleted it, I'm going to go ahead and run it just to get it up to date for this video. All right, so that's done. And so we have the latest pricing data, and I should be able to look at Apple stock, right? Click on it, and I'll run my web server again. And we should have data up till the 29th, and we have our Apple chart, which is great. And so now the next thing we need to do, so we covered the first goal of adding a charting widget. So we have a visualization there. And then the next thing we want to cover is how to filter down this list. So we're going to add some filters to this page. So what we're going to do is put some drop downs at the top. And what we're interested in finding for this opening range breakout strategy is we want to find stocks that we have a bullish or bearish bias towards. So we can do this in a variety of ways. We can do this with indicators. We can do this with some type of price action. Or what I like to do as a first pass of finding the strongest and weakest stocks is to just look at the 52-week highs and the 52-week low list, right? So we want to find stocks as of the close today that are making new highs. And so let's try and find that. So if you look at the article here, the first thing I did was add a UI component here, which is just a basic HTML form. So if we go to the index page, which is the overall page here, with all the stocks, let's just add this drop down here. And so all this is a form, and it uses a get method, which means when we submit the form, it's going to put this query string in the URL. So it'll be like question mark, and then some value equals some value. In this case, the value, then what's going to appear is the name of the select or drop down box, and it's called filter. So it'll be question mark filter equals, and it'll be whatever filter the user selects here. So this drop down has a number of options. It has all stocks, which means just show everything. We're also going to give the user the ability to filter down to stocks that made a new intraday high today, stocks that made a new intraday low, and then stocks that made new closing highs and new closing lows for the range in our database. I don't think we have 52 weeks in our database. We have like 4 months or something, but that'll be good enough for what we're looking for right now. So let's go ahead. So that this is a drop down. And so if you refresh the page after saving that to the template, you'll get this drop down that looks like this. And notice if I click new intraday highs, click submit, You see in the URL here, it has question filter equals new intraday highs. If I put new closing highs, right, filter equals new closing highs. Filter equals new closing highs, right? So that value is getting set for the name filter, and that's going in the URL. Okay, but you notice nothing's really happening yet. And so what we need to do now is actually process the request and take this value and then run our SQL query differently based on what's in the URL there. And so now we just go to our main.py, and then this is our index. And then you'll remember when we're using these templates, right, we get a reference to the current request and pass it to the template. And so what we need to do, what the request has, is it has access to these query variables, right? And so what I can do is you get this line, okay? I have it in the article. And so you say stock filter, this is just the name of a variable. So I'm setting stock filter equal to request.queryparams.get. So it gets the value of the filter query param. And then this second parameter is a default. So if filter is not set in the URL, for instance, you know, when you first get to the page, it's not set, then it's just going to be false. So stock filter will have false. Okay. And so what I want to do is, since this index page, this listing page selects all of the stocks in the database by default, we're going to say if stock filter is some value, right? Then we want to select a subset of the stocks. Otherwise, we're going to select all the stocks. Okay. So if the stock filter is equal to new intraday highs, right? So let's set that. If it's equal to new intraday highs, we're going to run a different SQL query that just selects the stocks that hit an intraday high. Okay, so how do we do that? So what query can we run? So I've prepared the query right here. And so let's run this in our SQLite database browser. Okay. And so I'm going to get this query. And I'm going to open a database. And we're going to open full stack app.db. Okay. And in my query box here, I'm using a subselect here. Okay. So let me take out the outer level here. Okay. And so look what we're going to do. We're going to select. So we're running a select to select from the database. We're going to select the symbol, the name, the stock ID, and we're going to take the maximum close. So this maximum is an aggregate function in SQL. So we're going to select the maximum close, the date, symbol, name, and stock ID. And then we're going to join on the stock table so that we get the actual stock symbols. So we're going to join stock price on the stock, and then join on stock.id equals stock price.stock.id. And then we're going to group by stock ID so when we apply this SQL aggregate function, we need to get the maximum close of each stock in our database, right? Okay, and so I'm going to run this, and this will get the maximum close of each stock in our database. So you'll see that runs, and you see Agilent Technologies, for instance, the maximum close was 106,777, and it occurred on October 22nd, which was about a week ago. And then Alcoa, its maximum close occurred in August. And so we have the date of the maximum close in the database for every single stock here. But we don't want the maximum close for every single stock, and we don't want the maximum close for every single date. We only want stocks that hit a max, where the max close is equal to today's date. And so to do that, that's why I've done this outer query. So what you can do in SQL is select from. So I can have this select query, and then I can select from this query in parentheses. So I take this entire row set, and I'm going to select only the rows where the date is equal to some value. And the date I want to select is today's date. Okay, so let's see if there's any of these stocks in this list where the maximum close is happened on today's date. So I don't know the results of this yet. Let's see if there are any. Okay, so I run this query, And here you go. It looks like we have some. So let's not look at it here. I'm going to copy this query to my Python code. Okay, so we have a cursor object already. And so here, if stock filter equals new intraday, actually, what are we calling it? New closing highs, right? So new closing highs. If that's the stock filter, then we're going to execute a different query. And then we're going to select all the stocks where the max close happened today. And for the current date, we're going to calculate the current date dynamically. And so to do that, we'll do from date time import date. Okay. And then the current date is just a date.today.iso format, like that. Okay. And that'll get us the current date in the correct form. Okay. So now let's go ahead and filter. And so I'm going to say new closing highs. Click that. And this should filter down. So you see there's a lot of stocks that made new closing highs today. So let's go ahead and scroll through this list to see if any of the stocks that we filtered down stick out to us and are any that we're interested in trading. So I'll scroll through. Let's see what we got. We got Dolby Labs. Let's see what's going on there. So that looks, actually that's looking like a pretty good idea here. It looks like we got this nice chart pattern here, and looks like it's now closing at new high. So I like this Dolby idea actually. Actually, that one looks pretty good. So we'll mark down this DLB. So for this one, let's go ahead and start writing down some ideas, and then we'll add some UI pieces so that we can add these stocks to our trade list for the day. So Dolby Labs, I like it. So that's a pretty good idea. So what else do we have in this list? We have, so we got down to Dolby. Let's see, Digimark 8x8. Let's check out that one. Let's check out this First Bank, sure. Let's check out S&P China ETF. IQ, we'll check that out. There's this lithium battery ETF. I haven't heard of some of these yet. Some of these might just be new listings, and that's why they're on the list. I'll open another China ETF. Datto. I think that's a new IPO, so that might be interesting. Pinterest was on the list, which is, yeah, so that one just had a great earnings, so that's why that's on the list. It actually came up earlier this week in the list when I scanned. Unfortunately, I didn't record the video before that, but that one was a nice move to catch. I'll look at this LiveRamp Holdings, Sage Therapeutics, Southern Copper. Let's just keep opening a variety of these. I'm just opening them in new tabs. Social Media Fund, sure. Cool. And so let's look at some of those. WD-40, sure. Weibo. All right. So, and XOMA. Let's see. So IQ, let's see. That could be a pretty good idea. Yeah, I guess I could see where that could break out. So this is a nice bottom that's formed over a number of years. So yeah, we could try that IQ. So we'll add IQ. So I think that's considered like is that the Netflix of China or something like that? Yeah, online video platform. So we'll throw that on the list. Lithium battery ETF. Seems like I don't have a chart there. Another China ETF here. That looks great. MCHI. Looks like it's reaching new 2-year highs even. So I'll put MCHI there. Datto is fairly new. It looks like it went down the first day of its IPO. So that was the close there, but it is reaching new highs down now. Yeah, let's throw it on there, even though it's a new stock. So MSP we'll put on there. Pinterest, I just feel like we're chasing at this point. We picked this up earlier this week, which would have been the time to get in, but I feel like I'm chasing it now. LiveRamp. Yeah, this LiveRamp looks like it's breaking out, so this could be a good one. RAMP, don't know what they do. And then Sage Therapeutics. this is one of those stocks that if it bottomed, it could make a quick move back up to this from this gap here. So that could be interesting. Yeah, let's do it. Sage Therapeutics, Southern Copper. Let's do it. SCCO. Okay. Stitch Fix looks like, wow, Stitch Fix is doing great again. So SFix. And social media has been hot lately, although Facebook, I think their earnings were not that impressive, so that might affect it some. But yeah, social media seems pretty hot still. So we can do SOCL, WD40. Look at WD40. It sounds like such a boring stock, but it's done great over the years. So we have a few stock ideas jotted down here, but we don't really want to jot them down like this. We want to store them in our database. So what we're going to do is add a couple of new database tables, and then add a way on our web application to add stocks to these tables. And so what I have here is a couple of queries here to add new tables. And so I'm going to add two new tables. One table is called strategy. So I'm going to have another table here. And in our create DB, we're going to add a couple of new queries here for create table statements to create these tables. Okay. So the first one is going to create a table called strategy. And each strategy is going to have an ID, which is just a unique integer, and then a name. And so the name could be like opening range breakout for the name of the strategy. And then we're going to have another table that references a stock and a strategy. And this table is going to be called stock strategy. And so there'll be a row in this table for each of the stocks that we want to associate with the strategy. So if I want to add Dolby, for instance, from my UI, I'll already have a record called opening range breakout strategy. And then I'm going to add a new record to the stock strategy table. And then it'll reference the stock I'm going to trade and the strategy I want to trade, the strategy I want to use on that stock. So if Dolby was stock ID 342, there'd be a record with 342 in here. And then since opening range breakout will be strategy number 1, there'll be a record with the stock ID of Dolby and the strategy ID of opening range breakout. And so each of those has a foreign key to the strategy and the stock table. And yeah, it'll make a little more sense as we add to it on the UI. So those are the two new tables that we're adding. And so I'm going to run my create DB again. So Python 3 create db.py. And I'll run that again, and it creates those tables. And then we also need to insert records into the strategy table. And so I'm going to create two new records, and I'm going to put these in the create DB as well. And so the strategies are going to be called opening range breakout and opening range breakdown. And so for each of those strategies, I'm going to insert a record into the strategy table. So insert into strategy, name, values, and then the strategy. Okay. So if I run this one more time, all right. And so if I check my strategy table, I just have my records for opening range breakout and opening range breakdown. So what we'll do next is allow the user, when visiting a given page, so for instance, Dolby, right? I want a way to say, apply opening range breakout strategy to this stock when I click a button. And so I'm going to put a little drop down with listing my strategies here and a little button to say applied strategy. Okay. So to do that, I want to select all of my strategies that are in the database. So if I go to the stock detail page, I already have a database connection here. And so what I can do is do a cursor.execute, select star from strategy, and I'll say strategies equals a cursor.fetch all. And I want to pass those strategies over to my template. So my template response here, I'll just say comma strategies like that. And then if I go into my stock detail HTML, I should be able to just say for strategy in strategies, and 4, and then I'll put strategy ID and strategy name. All right. If I refresh now, I don't see anything yet. And why is that? It's because I misspelled it. Okay. So do that, and you see I have number 1, opening range breakout, number 2, opening range breakdown. Okay. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is add a form, and we're going to make this a drop down as well. Okay. And I'll do another select. And then this form, the method is going to be post. So you do a get method when you're retrieving something from the database or submitting a query string filter, but you do a post method if you want to post data that updates the database itself. And so I'm going to do select, and I'm going to do name equals strategy ID. Okay. And then here, I'm going to have my for loop inside, and I'm going to have an option for each one in the dropdown. And I'm going to say option value equals quote strategy ID, and I'll show the strategy name on the form, and then the value will be strategy ID. Okay, cool. So if I do that, I have this drop down now, and it shows the strategy name there. But if I were to inspect this, you'll see the select name is strategy ID, and it has option value 1 and 2. So now I just need a button. Okay, input type equals submit, and then I'll just say value equals, and this is going to say apply strategy. Okay, so we're basically saying apply. By clicking that, it's going to apply the opening range breakout strategy to the currently selected stock. And so we're going to submit the strategy ID, and what we'll also do is create a hidden form field here, or I'll leave it showing for now. So I'll just do input type equals text, value equals stock.id, like that. Okay, and so you see the stock ID is 1947. Okay, and then I have to give this a name. So I'll call this stock ID. And so I have a stock ID that's going to get submitted, and a stock ID that's going to get submitted, 1947, and a strategy ID that's going to be submitted, which would be like 1 or 2 there, right? And if I click apply strategy, it's going to post that to some URL that's going to process those form values. So we're going to be processing a form field and inserting records into the database. So it says method not allowed. It's because I haven't set up a handler to handle this form post. Okay, so to do that, I have my code here. And so I've already created the form. And so let's create another route in our application. We're going to create a couple of routes here, and I'll just go through this quick. Okay, so here's our code sample. And so we'll go back to main.py and we'll add a couple of routes. Okay, so I had a couple functions here. Okay, so first thing is we need to process forms in Fast API. So that requires importing this form object. And so to import a form object in Fast API, so I'm going to do Fast API form data in Google. And you see we have to import this form object from Fast API. So I'll put this at the top like that. And so you see how we have in the documentation for Fast API, we process a post request with a post decorator here. So these, like the index is a get request. So we're fetching data from the server with a get request for both the index and the stock detail page, right? app.get. But this one is app.post because we're posting data to the server and we're going to insert into the stock table. So typically you're using a post request when you're processing a form, for instance. Okay, so I'm going to have a route called apply strategy. And so inside of this stock detail, my form method equals a post. We're going to have action equals apply strategy. Okay, and so that's in the source code here. So action equals apply strategy. So we're saying what route to post the data to. So we're going to post to apply strategy, main.py, we're going to accept the post request to apply strategy and run this function. And this accepts two post variables, strategy ID and stock ID. And so those are inputs to the function. And then we're just going to connect to our SQLite database, and we're going to insert into stock strategy. And since we passed in a strategy ID and a stock ID, we're going to insert a record with both of those to link them up, right? And then once we post, we're going to redirect back to a page called strategy, okay? So I'm going to return a redirect response, okay? And so that needs to also be imported. And so I'm going to do a fast API redirect response, so just so you can see where that is. Okay. So redirect response. Okay. So from fastapi.responses, import redirect response. So I'm going to add this as well. So this is after you take some action, you post to a form, you want to redirect the user to some page to say, oh, you successfully processed this form, or take them back to the home page, whatever. And so after we insert this strategy record, we're going to redirect to another URL. And so I'm redirecting to a route that's strategy and then / the strategy ID. And then I've created one more route that accepts that URL, right? And so we're going to show all the stocks that a particular strategy is getting applied to. And so this route is called strategy. And this is like a strategy. We have a strategy, a stock detail. We have a stock detail page, stockdetail.html. But we're also going to have like a strategy detail where we just, for opening range breakouts, we're going to list all of the stocks that we're applying that strategy to. Okay, so we're going to connect to the database again. We're going to select the name of the strategy for that ID. And then we're going to select from the stock strategy table, we're going to select all of the stocks that strategy is being applied to. And then we're going to return that to a template called strategy.html. So we'll create a new file, a new template called strategy.html, and put this in our templates directory. Okay. And then in here, I have the source code for the strategy HTML. Okay. And I'm just doing this for the sake of time, copying some, but you can follow along when I get the blog post posted. So this extends layout.html. So remember, we set up the overall layout in one file. That way all of our templates could use it. The strategy.html is then going to populate a block of content. And then we're just going to show the strategy name and then show all of the stocks that strategy is being applied to. Okay. So we're going to loop through all the stocks and show them. Okay. So now that we have that, let's see if this works. So I have this Dolby stock. I'm going to click apply strategy, and then it redirects to that page called opening range breakout. And we have a list of stocks that we're applying the opening range breakout strategy to. And so if I go back to stocks now, let's see, what else did we have on our list? So if I go to my notes here, we can find IQ, for instance, or we can look at our new closing highs and look at IQ. So let's load that guy up, right? And we decide we want to take a stab at that stock. I'm going to click apply strategy, and now that's on the list. Okay. And then one thing I'll do in that stock detail, I'm going to make that stock ID hidden. Okay, so I'm going to say type equals hidden because the user doesn't really need to see that, right? Okay, and then so let's go ahead and add some other ideas. So we'll do Dolby, IQ, MCHI, MSP. So we'll do MCHI. Okay, do MSP. And then we could also add that action right here in line as well if we wanted to. We'll do live ramp. Okay. And then we'll do Sage. Okay. SCCO. And we'll do Stitch Fix. SOCL, the social media ETF. And we'll do WD40. I'm not sure how much that one's going to move. So this opening range breakout is probably best for a stock that moves a lot intraday. So, okay, so China ETF, apply the strategy, right? And so we can just add a bunch of them, right? So I'm just going to click it for all of them. Okay. And there you go. So we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 stocks that we can try on the long side, and we can add other filters. This video is running a bit long, so I'm not going to add other filters here, but we could actually do bearish ideas as well. And you know, as of September, I'd been leading a bit bearish. So if you watch the sentiment videos, so we probably should add some bearish ideas here as well. But just for the sake of speed, let's just go ahead and try out these 10 stocks here for tomorrow. So yeah, that's it for this video. I think we've accomplished a lot. We're able to filter down our stock list to a list of bullish or bearish candidates. We can click on a stock and see a chart, and we can also add a stock to our stock strategy table and indicate that we want to apply a certain strategy to a basket of stocks. And in the next video, what we'll do is write the script for one of these strategies, and that script will pick up the list of stocks to apply the strategy to, and it will automatically trade those stocks based on the logic we put in the script. So stay tuned for the next video, and we'll code the opening range breakout script. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next video.